What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Gridiron here at House Call Sports. My name is Sammy HT. To my right is Mike, and today we will be discussing the Thursday night football game that took place last night. The Bengals defense, will it cost them a playoff berth? Preview the Lions against the Texans and our MVP favorites so far. Now, before we get started, please follow us on all social media platforms, and please go ahead and like and subscribe if you're new. We appreciate all kinds of feedback, and we cannot get this video started without a quick word from our sponsors, Vivid Seats. Vivid Seats is the most trustworthy and easy to navigate ticketing website. They have reliable and rewarding tickets with a 100% buyer's guarantee, which means your transaction will be safe and secure. You will get full service customer care and be compensated for any canceled events. And it's got the only ticket rewards program around. Ladies and gentlemen, what that means is, quite frankly, football season is already halfway till it's over. More than halfway now that I think about it. Only 18 weeks in the NFL season. 10 of them are already about to get going. Get your tickets. Don't miss out on a game. Hit the link in our description and go sit vividly. Now, Thursday night football was a very interesting game, to say the least. Ladies and gentlemen, it was one of those games where no defense was truly being played, but there was a little bit of sparks, a little bit of controversy with the officiating. Every elite game has some kind of controversy like that. Let's go over the stats for some of these players, right, Mike? I mean, we had a bunch. The stars were out, right? Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson.
Oh yeah.
It's safe to say that those two right now are the cream of the crop at the QB position, Mike.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And right now, like, it's hard for me to pick three QBs right now that are playing better than the two QBs I'm about to mention. First of all, let's talk about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow threw for 428 passing yards, granted on 56 attempts, crazy number, 4 touchdowns. And then Ja'Marr Chase. I mean, nothing else needs to be said about Ja'Marr Chase. 11 catches, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was targeted 17 times. Mike, that is an absurd number, and I get it, seeing as T. Higgins was out. Not really much. No one really you could really go to that's reliable, and when they really went to anybody else other than their running back, it really didn't turn into anything other than Tanner Hudson, of course, who got a touchdown this game. But ultimately, the Bengals were not victorious because, well, Lamar Jackson had 33 passing attempts, 290 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Mike, I don't know if you saw that fadeaway throw to take the lead.
Yeah.
It was absolutely fantastic. That was hands down
Looked like
my favorite. Yeah, it made no sense. Yes, I call it the Kobe throw at this point. I mean, it was just phenomenal throw, absolutely. Derrick Henry had a quiet night, only 4.3 yards per carry, 68 yards and a touchdown. Tylan Wallace. I have not heard Tylan Wallace's name since Oklahoma State. He was a huge, highly touted prospect out of high school, went to OK State, was considered the wide receiver one by a lot of people. Strange that he never really panned out so far in the NFL, but here's his breakout game. 3 catches, 115 yards, and a touchdown. Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, relatively quiet. Bateman had a touchdown. Deontay Johnson so far has been quiet, right, Mike?
Yeah, he's not really doing much. He actually made one play, but he wasn't able to get out of bounds, so it actually wasn't a positive play, but that's really all I saw last night from him.
Yeah, it's really weird. Deontay Johnson, at the very least, everybody else is kind of getting some kind of run, but not a good start for Deontay Johnson, who had a pretty strong showing with Carolina before he evidently got traded. Mike, I'll go ahead and ask you, what was your biggest takeaway from this Thursday night football game?
Honestly, it's got to be Joe Burrow. I mean, I know he lost, but oh my God, like you said, he threw the ball 56 times. That's ridiculous. And he was lighting it up with Ja'Marr Chase. Listen, it's crazy. These guys have been playing so well this season, and they're 4-6. When have you ever seen a combo like that, and then the team is 4-6? It kind of blows my mind. But, I mean, the plays and the throws that he was making, I mean, this is some of the best football he's ever played. And unfortunately, the team's record is not showing that. But I really took that from this game as honestly, Joe Burrow did everything he possibly could, and so did Jamar Chase. So unfortunately, Lamar just got the best of him in the second half, but just an unbelievable game by both quarterbacks. I mean, Lamar Jackson, this is like, if you watch this was two MVPs going up against each other. I think Joe Burrow would be, recommended a lot more in the conversation if he had a better record, because if the stats are actually unbelievable. The stats right now for Joe Burrow on the season, he's throwing for 2,672 yards, 24 touchdowns and 4 picks with a QBR of 74.4. And Lamar, he's got 2,669 yards, 24 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns with a QBR of 77.6. So honestly, it's very similar. Very similar. He is having just as good a year as Lamar Jackson, but the team's record is not showing that, and that's changing everything.
Yeah, also a passer rating of 108.1. That's top 5 in the league, I believe. He's been absolutely incredible, and it's a shame that we're experiencing this greatness from Joe Burrow, and the team is only 4 of 6. You add that to the fact that Jamar Chase, I believe, is leading the league in receiving. He's got, I believe the number is 940 or 961 passing yards. All of that really for nothing, and it kind of makes me upset. He's also got 10 touchdowns. Let me go ahead and give you the proper stats. He's got 981 receiving yards, 10 touchdowns, and somehow, some way, this team is 4-6. Another thing, Trey Hendrickson, he's been a very, very big bright spot in a defense that we're about to talk about. 11 sacks. How in the world do you have 3 impact players who are lighting it up and your team is 4-6? It makes no sense. But we'll go ahead and we'll discuss the Bengals defense right now, because the Bengals defense right now has been a huge topic of conversation lately, and rightfully so, because the Bengals defense quite literally has sold more games than I could count. Now, we'll go over the stats, and Mike, I'll just go ahead and ask for your opinion on this. So right now, the Bengals are 26 overall in points per game defensively, and then they're also 19th in yards per game. Here's where it starts to get ugly. They got the 28th ranked third down defense, and in the red zone, they're the 31st worst defense. They're the 31st. They're second to last in red zone defense. And really, there's no strength on either team on the defensive side for the Bengals. At the very least, for the Ravens, who we're going to talk about in a second, the Ravens, yes, they don't really have a great pass defense. I think it's a very evident it's a problem, and maybe help could be on the way with Tre'Davious White. But at the very least, they have a great run defense. So you're going to the Ravens are going to shut down one aspect of the game. It's really the other aspect that you can expose. For the Bengals, you could run it, you could pass it, you could twirl around, do a 360 jump shot pass, and somehow, some way, it'll get completed for a touchdown. I mean, in that Tylan Wallace long touchdown run, there was no way. You had 3 defenders ready to, at the very least, push him out of bounds for nothing, and it ended up being a touchdown. Mind you, this is momentum coming to play, because the Ravens would get stops, and what would happen is the Ravens offense would go down the field in like one play. Tylan Wallace touchdown. Makes no sense, and quite frankly, it's unfortunate. Mike, what do you think about this defense?
Yeah, outside of Hendrickson, they don't really got many stars in that defense, and that's really what's letting this team down. The tackling on Tylan Wallace was absolutely horrendous. They gave up on the play. They thought he went out of bounds. I mean, it looks like he was about to go out of bounds. You can't give up until the guy is out. I mean, that is the strangest touchdown I've seen in a long time. When I realized he was still running, I'm like, surely he went out. But it's just terrible tackling. It's just terrible coverage. And this is what's hurt Cincinnati all season long. They had that one good game to start the year where the Patriots only scored 16, but it's the Patriots. So I guess, that's why. But they're just not a good defense. And that's Joe Burrow can only do so much. Jamar Chase can only do so much. They blew that game for them in the second half. And that's really unfortunate, because they were actually playing a good first half. I believe it was 14-7 at the half.
Yep.
The crowd was booing in Baltimore. The crowd was booing. When have you heard that in Baltimore this year? I mean,
Not at
they were
all.
literally like, what is going on? It was 21-7, and I'll tell you right now, that fumble changed the entire game. Once he
It
put that
was.
ball on the ground at the 30-yard line, that turned the whole game around. Lamar Jackson had an incredible run when it looked like he was going to get sacked 20 yards back. Should have scored a touchdown, I thought. He just had to go down at the 1. But I just, sad. And it's unfortunate because they have an incredible quarterback in Joe Burrow, an MVP candidate if it wasn't for their record. Because I told you his numbers, they're phenomenal. They're some of the best of his career, and this is what Joe Burrow does in the second half of the season. He turns it on. But I just don't think they're going to get anywhere with that defense, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll go ahead and check out the Bengals schedule for the rest of the season in a second, but it really doesn't matter what team they're facing because right now every team is scoring lights out on them. I mean, the only teams they're really doing well against are the only teams they're really doing well defensively against are teams that are quite obviously bad offensive teams, and even those teams are getting licks in. I mean, we know now that Washington's offense is elite, so giving up 38 isn't a problem. Giving up even 24 points to Carolina, in my opinion, is unacceptable considering how bad their offense truly is. They've had spotty good performances, but quite frankly, they come few and far between. Now, we'll go ahead and go over their schedule, specifically their next week, and we'll go over the next 5 weeks. Why not? So next week, they go against the Chargers. Then after that, they go against Pittsburgh. Then you got Dallas, then you got Tennessee, then you got Cleveland. So it's very possible that the Bengals could win these games. Very, very doable. But will the defense let them? That's really the only question. We've seen so often how if you don't play complementary football, you're not going to go far. And right now, the Bengals have not played complementary football all year long, and it's led to their 4-6 record. So quite frankly, I am a little I'm concerned because right now, how can we expect the Bengals to make the playoffs if they're constantly giving up? And I get it. This Ravens offense is absolutely historic, and it's one of the best offenses. It's the best offense in the league right now. However, that's not an excuse to be giving up second halves like that. If I saw you in the first half lead that same offense to 7 points, that energy better be kept for the rest of that game. But it wasn't, and I mean, you saw the result, Mike. It was terrible. It was a terrible result.
Yeah, it's not how you start; it's how you finish, and that defense just clearly lets off the gas.
Right, and let's go ahead and shift gears to the other side real quick, because I did discuss the Ravens, right? And the Ravens are no spring chickens either. Of course, Ravens very familiar with having elite defenses, very familiar with having strong, hard-nosed defenses under John Harbaugh, rather. This year, the Baltimore Ravens have hit an all-time low when it comes to their defense, specifically their pass defense. I mean, it is jaw-dropping how bad this pass defense truly is. Let's go ahead and name them off. I mean, they're the worst passing defense in the league in terms of passing yards per game. They are second to last in pass play. So teams are passing against this team more than any other team in the league. So now immediately people are aware of this weakness. This is a passing league, and people are passing on you constantly. You have the worst passing defense. I'm just saying that is something to be pretty worried about. Overall, their defense is 27th in yards per game. They're 24th in points per game. They're not very good on third down either. Honestly, it's a little worrying. However, their run defense is good. So come playoff time, that's going to be valuable. But Mike, my question to you is this. Is it sustainable for a Super Bowl run for the Ravens to have this pass defense? Will they be able to figure it out?
I mean, I hope so, especially with the talent they got on that offense. It'd be sad to see that go to waste this year. And then they got some Darius Smith that's coming in, so that's probably going to help them out a little bit. But it's just unacceptable for a Ravens team to have that kind of a defense, especially under John Harbaugh. I mean, they've been known to be the backbone of that team. And now it's the offense that's carrying them. So I don't know. they've got to start showing it over the next few weeks and start stringing some good games together where they play well defensively. And they got to start helping Lamar out by, keeping teams on the field, getting them off a little bit. But I'm not sure if it's sustainable. I hope it is because, again, this offense is historic right now, and it's fun to watch. And it would suck to see that, just because the defense isn't holding up their end, that the Ravens are going to slip and lose once again in the playoffs. If that happens to Lamar this year, I'm telling you right now, I wouldn't want to be him. I wouldn't want to be the Ravens, and I wouldn't want to be him, and I would not want to watch SportsCenter for 1 second. Because we all know what he does in the regular season, but if he doesn't win it this year, he's never going to hear the end of it. So that defense, they better get it together, and they better get to the Super Bowl this year, or there's going to be some changes coming.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you meant Tre'Davious White there. Zadarius Smith obviously went to the Lions, but I definitely knew what you meant. You definitely got those two. I'm not going to lie, those two names, I would get mixed up as well.
Yeah, I'm Tre'Davious White.
Yeah, it's the Darius Smith, Tre'Davious White. Woo, it's a mouthful. You feel me? But let me also say this though. Their schedule in the next 5 games, I'd say it's very winnable. You got Pittsburgh, the Chargers, Philly, the Giants, Pittsburgh again. Now Pittsburgh, never an easy game. We all know that it's a rivalry game. No matter how bad the records are, these teams are going to be going at it. It's the closest we're going to get to a college rivalry game in the NFL between Pittsburgh and Baltimore. That's going to be next week. Now, is it sustainable for the Baltimore Ravens to win this way? No, it's not. Any team can tell you it's not sustainable. The greatest show on turf got 1 Super Bowl out of it. The very next time, ran into a Patriots team, didn't work out. So, in my opinion, we got to understand this. And of course, that was 20 plus years ago. I wasn't even born when that happened, but it's still evident to this day because, quite frankly, you saw last year a buzzsaw offense in the Niners go up against an elite defense. Hello, what happened? That defense ended up stifling the Niners. And when you have the best QB in the league, you're going to be able to make plays down the line. So, let's go ahead and consider this, Mike. And I'm gonna go ahead and kick it to you after this, and I'll go ahead and ask you a question. Say right now the Baltimore Ravens, this pass defense remains. The Steelers right now, last couple weeks have looked pretty good, right? Offenses look pretty good. Defense has looked the same because it's a Mike Tomlin defense. What odds would you give of the Steelers winning this division now that you know that they are who they are, the Ravens are, when it comes to the passing offense? How big of a chance are you giving the Steelers?
I give them a 30% chance. I still think the Ravens are going to win the division. But, when you got TJ Watt back there wreaking havoc, and then Russell Wilson is playing some great football right now. We talked about this before. It's nice to see Russ finally doing what he did in the past. And maybe he's found a home with Pittsburgh. So I do give them a chance. I think they're starting to play good football. Mike Tomlin's coaching that team very well. But it's hard to go against Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson right now. This is so fun to watch. And I just don't think that the Steelers have that potent of a team compared to the Ravens. So I still give the Ravens, that division. But I think Pittsburgh will be the closest, giving them a fight.
Yeah, I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, and here's where I'll kind of push back. I would say it's more than 30%. Right now, I think it's 50-50. I think right now of all the teams in the NFC North, no team is more complete than the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I never thought that'd even be the case considering how last year it was the Ravens who just absolutely dominated on both sides of the ball. And they were hands down top to bottom the best team in the AFC up until they faced the Chiefs. Now it's really just one side is just completely garbage, and the offensive end is, you said, we already mentioned it, relatively historic. However, the Steelers, with Russell Wilson pushing the ball down this field, man, it's got me thinking, hey, if this offense can get going, this Steelers offense can get going against a Ravens defense that we know is not very good in the past, if they can get that going. Look, Mike, I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm starting to believe that this division could be the Steelers, and it's a very weird thought to have, considering the fact that the Steelers, not a weird thought, but it's a very odd thought. I guess those are the same thing. Those are kind of synonyms, but it's just odd, in my opinion, how coming into the season, the Steelers had a QB like Russell Wilson, who everybody, including myself, kind of said was washed, right? Offensive line, relatively questionable. We don't really trust Najee. We didn't really trust Najee Harris much because of how I believe Jaylen Warren was just outperforming in everything. The offense was a real question mark. The defense we never really questioned because it's, again, I'll reiterate, it's a Mike Tomlin defense. He's always got that defense ready to go. But now that I'm seeing the offense that we're seeing with Russell Wilson on the field, I'm just saying the division is, I've never seen I thought it was relatively obvious that the Ravens were going to win this division. The Steelers are making this an even very interesting fight. I'll give the Steelers a 50% chance. I'm not sold completely on the Ravens anymore because that pass defense, it's ugly, Mike. I don't know what else to tell you. It's really, really ugly. It's crazy. And I don't know exactly where to go, where to go from there if you're the Ravens.
Yeah, it's going to come down to the defense of the Ravens because obviously the offense is superior. Just like I said, I just think there's too much talent on the offense, and I think it's going to overshadow that bad defense.
We'll definitely see. We've seen some elite offenses come and they get quick exits, man. So maybe the Ravens are a different team because, well, if we're being honest, it's Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, and those two alone are just fantastic. But who's to say that, like, you know, maybe the Ravens can prove me wrong and this offense stays consistent. There's one thing that translates well in the playoffs. It's a great run game, and they have the best run game in the business right now. So we'll see down the line how it goes down. But the moral of the story is from Thursday Night Football, I'd say my biggest takeaway is the fact that no matter what happens with the Bengals, their defense is just going to cost them from going to the playoffs, and the Ravens defense might cost them from winning a Super Bowl. So down the line, I guess we'll definitely see what happens. Let's go into our key matchup of the week. We're talking Lions-Texans. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about the Lions, man. They have looked absolutely fantastic, and I don't think right now there is a better team in the league than the Detroit Lions, and that's saying a lot considering you got an undefeated team in the AFC. You got teams like the Ravens, the Bills, the Niners are still around, but right now the Lions, I mean, Mike, any disagreements here? Do you think it's the Lions? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious it's the Lions.
It's the Lions. They're playing just unbelievable football right now. And that defense really hasn't even missed a beat, missing their best pass, rusher.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And they are getting Zadarius Smith. They are now getting him. So they're going to get some help there. It's just on both sides of the ball. The defense is playing lights out. The offense is playing lights out. Jared Goff is the most consistent quarterback in the league. He's been like that for the last year and a half. It's impressive. And that run game is unstoppable. They're running people over. They're running past people. So by far, the Lions are the best team in football. They remind me of the Niners last year when we were all saying, who's going to beat them? They've got it all from top to bottom, all three phases of the game. And then they're coached well. They're coached. They got a player's coach, and the players are playing for that coach. Like I said, I would run through a wall for that man. He is an inspirational coach. He's the kind of coach that you want to have on your team, that you'd want to play for. And that's what the Lions are doing, and they're going out there. Amon-Ra St. Brown is putting up numbers now, and I don't think anybody's stopping them. I really don't. I think they're going to the Super Bowl this year. They got one game close. They were blowing out the Niners, who, again, were an incredible team last year. They were blowing them out in that game, and they blew it in the second half. They were so close they could taste it. And I think this year they're going, and they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. And get Marshall Mathers out there, get everybody going, and Eminem's going to show up, and it's going to be a party in Detroit.
Man, a lot of people are high on Detroit, myself included. Real quick, I mean, put it short, they're fifth in defensive points per game, fifth in points per play. Check this out. Aiden Hutchinson got injured a couple of weeks ago. They still have the third best. No, not the third best. They have the best third down defense and the fourth best red zone scoring defense as well. And of course, they haven't missed a beat offensively. They're first in points per game, seventh in yards. Fifth in yards per play. And they're doing it on every aspect of the ball. You want to talk about rushing? They got it. You want to talk about passing? They do it. They every aspect of this is a team that every single aspect offensively is elite. And that is a dangerous team. And I'll give credit, and like, this is no disrespect to the Ravens because it is a historic offense. But here's why I prefer the Lions. I trust the receivers of the Lions more to have bigger games. I trust the run game of the Lions, maybe not as much as I trust Derrick Henry, but I certainly trust a two-back system of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. You would agree, Mike. And if this defense can sustain this level of consistency on third down in the red zone, right now I think they're like 19th in points per game, but they are also fifth. They're 21st. They're 21st in yards per game. They're also fifth in points per game. So they're getting stops defensively. A bend don't break defense is perfect for the playoffs. And quite frankly, we'll go ahead and shift to the Texans. The Texans is a bad matchup for them. This is because right now, not only are they relatively injured, you got Nico Collins questionable, you got Tank Dell questionable. We all know about the offensive line. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine if the offense, if Aiden Hutchinson was healthy against this offensive line after what the Jets were doing to them? Mike, that's this nightmare fuel.
Yeah, they had 8 sacks, the Jets, last week against that offensive line. It has been atrocious, and they're going to get beat. CJ Stroud is going to get beat up. I feel bad because he is such an elite quarterback, and the fact that they're even in the playoff conversation is all thanks to him. He's had a tough year, losing Stephon Diggs, tearing an ACL, and you got Nico Collins that's banged up all year, and now you got Tank Dell. The whole team is basically out. And he's still doing what he can back there, but he's getting rushed every single time, and now he's got to go against a Lions pass rush. I think this is going to be an absolute blowout. It's going to be like 41-10. This is going to be a blowout. I just don't think the Texans. It's going to be an absolute smacking. I just don't think the Texans have any chance in this game. If they had their players and if the offensive line was better than what I've been seeing, I would give them some kind of hope, but I just don't see it, and I think the Lions are going to feast.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about the Texans real quick. The Texans this year, obviously battling a lot of injuries. Nico Collins is going to be questionable. Dameon Pierce is going to be questionable. Tank Dell is going to be questionable. We all know Stephon Diggs is going to be out for the year. It is looking very, very rough right now in H-Town, and I think coming into the year, we had a lot of faith in Houston to really turn it after the very successful first year for DeMeco Ryan. Now, second year, expectations are a little higher, and they've met those expectations, but not without consequence. Now, the offense was looked at as an offense that would be an elite unit. So far, not really. 17th in points per game, 11th in yards per game. They're 16th on third down, 15th in the red zone. This offense has disappointed. And of course, most of it was because of the injuries. But also another part of it, Bobby Slowick has been relatively disappointing in his second year as an offensive coordinator. I bet a lot of GMs, a lot of head coaches a lot of GMs are really they broke a lot of sweat thinking, oh my gosh, Bobby Slowick, he looks amazing. They let him go in a second year. I bet they're like, oh, thank God we hired somebody else after what happened. And it just goes to show. It just goes to show we should not rely strictly on what an offensive coordinator does for 1 year. You got to give it a bit of time. There's a reason Ben Johnson it was so highly touted, and he's still highly touted. He's probably the most highly touted coordinator in the league right now. That's how highly touted he is. Bobby Slowick, ironically, was up there with him at one point last year because we all thought that the talent that he was working with wasn't necessarily up there, but he was making that offense good. Now that we know Nico Collins is a top 10 receiver, now that we know Tank Dell was a great receiver, we know CJ Stroud is an elite quarterback. Now this offense all of a sudden looks 10 times worse than we all thought it would. And we're all pointing at one man, and that's Bobby Slowick. Now, you say that CJ Stroud is the only reason this team is winning, and he's definitely a major reason. I'd give credit to DeMeco Ryan and what he's done with this defense. Clearly, the additions that they have made to the defensive end have been very, very productive. You're talking about Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson. Their pass rush has been working. However, with that being said, doesn't really matter when your offense is just mediocre and your offensive line is just bad.
Yeah, it might be the worst in the league, and that's coming from a Patriots fan. Yeah. So pretty sad.
It is really sad, and quite frankly, I think Mike, you and I both thought that this offensive line would make a lot more progress. It looked a lot better last year. I don't know what the heck happened this year.
Yeah, they looked incredible last year. Yeah, I think just honestly, injuries have really plagued this team, unfortunately, and the offensive line has hurt them.
Yeah, and honestly, look, I'm looking at CJ Stroud's statistics: 11 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. I mean, if we're comparing it to what Jared Goff is doing, he's one of the most efficient QBs in the league. He barely misses passes. I mean, he's so efficient. He's a statue in that pocket. I mean, quite frankly, I don't think I should be surprised that the Lions right now are as good as they are. However, I am a bit surprised at how elite they are on both ends of the ball. Because I'm not going to lie, I was not the biggest fan of the talent going in that defense. I was not the biggest fan of the talent. I couldn't have been more wrong. I was always thinking this Lions team is just going to be one of those offensive teams that was going to be consistently great. But now, top to bottom, and the opposite can be said about the Texans. I mean, we all thought the offense was going to be the one that was going to be on fire, and the defense growing pains but would get better. The defense has taken a shot up, and the offense has just not followed suit. So I think my prediction for this game, my official prediction, I agree. It's going to be a sound, difficult victory. 28 to 14, I think, is going to be the final score. It's really unfortunate that this is what the Texans are. Again, I want to reiterate, mostly because of injuries, but a lot of it also has a lot to do with the play calling and how bad the offense, how underwhelming rather the offense has really been, Mike.
This would be a great game to look forward to even more if they were all healthy. I mean, look at the star power that there'd be.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and shift gears to the MVP conversation. Obviously, we got a lot of MVP candidates. Of course, we got Lamar Jackson. You got Josh Allen. You got Jared Goff right now. And I would have added Joe Burrow if the record was better. But unfortunately, it just isn't good enough. He might not even
the same numbers.
It quite frankly is just disappointing how good he's playing and how bad the team really is. We'll go ahead and go over Lamar Jackson real quick. Lamar Jackson right now, he's been hands down the most, in my opinion, he's been second most consistent quarterback in the league, not named Jared Goff. Looking at his stats, Lamar Jackson, 24 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 123 passer rating with 22,669 yards. That is an MVP. That is an MVP if I've ever seen one. The fact that he's not turning the ball over at an alarming rate is just it's a great thing to see. And his stats look so much better than last year. And his MVP case is just so much stronger. As for Jared Goff, Jared Goff is surprisingly, statistically, a lot more timid. 14 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 1,840 yards, and 115 passer rating. He's very consistent. He's very efficient. But somehow, some way, I respect him more as an MVP candidate because he's kept this machine going. And I think right now, even though I don't believe winning is a QB stat, I think the stats will come down the line, and he will definitely turn himself into a stronger candidate down the line. Then we go to Josh Allen. Josh Allen has been picking up a bit more steam since acquiring Amari Cooper, and that was a big pickup. His touchdowns have gone increasingly up since that pickup. So far, 17 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Mike, I know, you and I both know that Josh Allen not turning the ball over has been hands down the biggest surprise of the entire year. This man is notorious for throwing double-digit interceptions. He's only got 2 in the year. Just for reference, ladies and gentlemen, he had 18 interceptions last year, 14 the year before, 15 the year before that, 10 the year before that, 9 the year before. You see what I'm saying? He was a turnover machine, but he's looking a lot better. He looks like he's making better decisions with the football. I think you should definitely consider that when putting in your MVP vote. And then 2,000 passing yards and 105.8 pass rating. So, Mike, my question to you, of the 3 candidates that I just named their statistics and everything, who do you think is the strongest candidate?
It's got to be Lamar. Yeah. It's got to be Lamar Jackson. He's just, again, he won it last year, and he's having a better campaign this year. Now, the person who I think could come close could be Josh Allen because, again, 2 interceptions for Josh Allen. He was known for interceptions. That was his biggest weakness. And the fact that he's cleaned that up is incredible. And Amari Cooper's really helping him out back there. So, I mean, I think Lamar's going to take it. I just think that team's rolling. I don't see them slowing down at any point. And if they're going to continue to win, it's going to be Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. My thing is, though, how come Derrick Henry's not getting any love? I feel like he should get some kind of consideration for the year that he's having a great year.
He is having a fantastic year. I should bring up what he's doing. He's already over 1,000 yards rushing, 1,120 rushing yards, 184 carries. He's got 12 touchdowns. He's been a force, and
no one's talking about him.
And he's already matched his total. He's already close to matching his total from last year in less carries. So clearly he's had a great benefit from his offensive line. The threat of Lamar Jackson and him and his arm and his legs, he's had a lot to do with that, but I kind of agree with you. Now, here's my thing and my problem is that I think now it's been established that it's a QB award. You just can't give it to anybody else. The reason why? Well, I'll give you a couple examples. I'll mention Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry and his team in 2020, they went, I believe, to the AFC Championship game. They were 9-7. In that year, Derrick Henry rushed for 2,027 yards and 17 touchdowns. That's a ridiculous number. And he would have been an MVP candidate. But unfortunately, for the great Derrick Henry, who is, in my opinion, a top 5 back ever, I don't think that they just didn't give it to him. He should have been a candidate. Now let's go to another example. Cooper Kupp in 2021. His team won the division. His team won the division at a 12-5 record, 145 receptions, 1,947 receiving yards, 16 touchdowns. He led all receivers in all categories and didn't win the award. It makes no sense, but if that's not winning you the award, I'm sorry, nothing will. And
so we should just change the name to MVP QB.
MV, most valuable QB. It should be that. And there's nothing wrong with that because the QB is the most valuable. He is the most valuable player on the field. He is. However, in a special year like this, where that Cooper Kupp had, And Cooper Kupp hasn't since then has never been able to reach those heights, mostly, of course, because of injury. He's never been able to hit those heights, and it kind of sucks that that kind of height is not rewarded. That kind of accomplishment is not rewarded. And quite frankly, it's a shame. But that's why I kind of think Derrick Henry is just, unfortunately, no matter how good he plays, he could have 1,000 rushing yards the next 8 games of the season.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going
to. I want to give the guy some recognition anyway because he's having a great year.
He
should be talked about more.
Best back in the league, in my opinion, hands down so far. So that is a shame. My pick for MVP, I think I agree. I don't mean to be an echo chamber, but like, ladies and gentlemen, like, are we seriously gonna pick anybody else? Like, what are we doing? This is not. There's no voter fatigue with Lamar Jackson. This man is incredible, and his stats are backing it up. And last year, you could have said, oh, he didn't have the right stats. Well, this year, he has better stats than your favorite QB. Yes, your favorite. And he's been the best QB in the league this year. So what exactly are we doing here? Trying to play semantics here? Oh, but what about Josh Allen? He doesn't have that many weapons. Oh, all of a sudden, Lamar Jackson has all the great weapons. They added a running back. They added Derrick Henry. And granted, Derrick Henry is an all-world running back, but I don't think anybody thought Derrick Henry would break. Like I don't think anybody thought that a 30-year-old Derrick Henry, who is past his prime in terms of running backs, would still remain at this stage an elite running back and the best running back in the league. So I don't think anybody expected it, but it's the case, and Lamar's benefiting from it. But that's really the only thing he's benefiting from. There hasn't been a consistent wide receiver right now for the Ravens, even with the addition of Deontay Johnson. Their leading receiver last night was Tylan Wallace. Come on. Like, what are we doing here? Mark Andrews has taken a step back. Isaiah Likely, we thought Isaiah Likely was in for a big year after that first game. We've not heard from him since. So, yeah, in short, Lamar Jackson is right now not the unanimous MVP, because I think Josh Allen and Jared Goff should get some votes, but he's definitely the lead candidate for MVP as of week 10 of the NFL season, Mike. It really isn't that close.
Yeah, we're in agreement. Yep.
Yeah, we are. And I don't, if anybody else disagrees, I mean, I don't know what to, like, everybody, I had people tell me Jared Goff. Look, Jared Goff has been a fantastic QB, and he's been very efficient. I'm sorry, Jared Goff does a lot for the offense, but Lamar Jackson does 10 times more. And that is not an insult. That is just a fact of life. Like, you look at what Lamar Jackson does for that team. You look what Jared Goff does for his team. No means to disrespect Jared Goff. But Jared Goff does as much for that team as the offensive line, as the running back, as the wide receivers. Lamar has to do above and beyond. Even when his offensive line, his wide receivers aren't playing well, his running game isn't working, doesn't matter. He'll do it all. So to finish, I'll go ahead and say this. If Lamar isn't your MVP, comment down below why he shouldn't be, and make sure your reasoning is very sound and civil, because quite frankly, we're both going to disagree with you. We thank you guys so much for joining us here at the Gridiron, here at House Call Sports. Like I said at the beginning of the video, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Follow us on all social media platforms. We have X, we have TikTok, we have Instagram, etc. Please let us know what you guys think of Thursday Night Football. Who you guys got this week between the Lions and the Texans. What you guys think of the Bengals and defense, and more. Thank you guys so much. God bless all of you. Talk to your mothers, guys. Come on. And we will see you guys next time. Peace.